What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Awake and Jake College Football Show. Week 12 preview. Time to get towards the end of the season. We are almost there. Teams with 2 and 3 games left. Typical show. We're gonna get a little high, get through some news, some notes, and then we're gonna start previewing all the games, and then also get into my 5 favorite bets. So honestly, not a lot of great games this weekend. There's one real marquee matchup, Tennessee and Georgia. Other than that, there's a lot of just games throughout the day. Now, if you're a college football fan in general, you don't really care which team you watch. You'll watch anybody. You can find a lot of good games to watch. But if you're just one of those that likes to tune into the big games, sorry, there's probably not a lot on the slate for you this weekend. But it is what it is. It'll still be a good weekend because college football is always great. But yeah, let's get into it and let's get a little high. This smoke break is brought to you by coffee, because what's a wake and bake without a little coffee to wake you up? All right, let's get into some news from the week. Florida State has fired offense coordinator Alex Atkins and defense coordinator Adam Fuller. Seems like kind of a desperation move by Norvell, which can't blame him. It feels like he wasn't, I'm not going to say he was on the hot seat before last season, but it feels like he was maybe trending that way a little bit than they had last year, and everybody's like, oh, fantastic, this guy's the guy. And now they're 1-9 this year. Feels like a little bit of a desperation play. We'll see how it works out. Yeah, very interesting move, but it had to happen. Let's be honest. That defense and that offense had been terrible. Diego Pavia, America's quarterback, everybody's favorite quarterback. This is his final year in college football, which is very sad. He did try to file for another year. That was denied, I believe, and because it was denied is why he is now suing the NCAA, claiming that his 2 years at the JUCO, because he went, for those who don't know, he played at, I think it was New Mexico Military Institute, something like that. A JUCO college in New Mexico, played 2 years there, played 2 years at New Mexico State, then transferred to Vanderbilt for his final season. He's trying to play some more college football. He's being denied that. Now he's suing over it. I hope he plays one more year, at least. I like Diego Pavia. I think he's fun to watch. But, you can't argue that your JUCO shouldn't count, because it does. You're in college playing. Just because you can't work off your name, image, and likeness at JUCO, which I don't know if that's necessarily true, but he couldn't then, or didn't then. You can't try to claim that. I hope he gets another year, like I said, because he's fun to watch. I just don't see how he does. And then probably the biggest news, Dana Holgorsen. He was hired it was announced he was hired as an offensive assistant or something or other. Well, he's actually taken over the play calling duties now. That took maybe less than a week. Marcus Satterfield is still on the staff. He is just no longer calling plays. Holgorsen is going to be taking over, and it's probably good. Probably good for Nebraska. It really wasn't working out with Satterfield. We all saw it. You have a freshman quarterback who has shown that has the potential to be good. Bring in an offensive-minded who is proven and has been proven for a long time to produce quarterbacks, or at least, have them put up good numbers. He is an air raid disciple, so I think this is a good move for Nebraska. It may not affect really much more this season, but if he sticks around next season, it is going to be very good for them. College football playoff rankings did come out. And honestly, I'm finding a lot to have a gripe about. If I had to be nitpicky, I would say that Notre Dame is too high. I know they only have one loss, but that one loss was to Northern Illinois. They have played a pretty easy schedule since then. Louisville is their one tough matchup, I guess, but even that's not great. I just think 8 is a little high, but they do only have one loss, so it's hard to argue with it. But speaking of one-loss teams, SMU at number 14, when their only loss is to an undefeated BYU team. So explain to me how SMU is all the way at 14, and they're behind a 2-loss Georgia team, a 2-loss Alabama team. I'm not saying that Georgia or Alabama wouldn't beat SMU, because it's very possible that they would. It is possible that they're better, but SMU, again, their one loss is to an undefeated, ranked number 6 BYU. You can't argue with that. You really can't, and I think that SMU is being disrespected. And then we got, and this gripe is straight coming from disrespectful attitude towards this team. They probably deserve the ranking they have. I just don't like this team and have been against them all season, that I'm just going to have a gripe about it. Mizzou at 23. I get it. They have only 2 losses. So you really have no choice but to rank them. So you put them at 23 because you can't put, and I agree, you can't put, Tulane ahead of them or anything like that. Not while Mizzou only has 2 losses. Do I think Tulane is possibly better? Oh, yeah, I definitely do. But Mizzou is a Power 4 team. Yeah, you do give them that. But I don't like Mizzou. I haven't liked Mizzou. I haven't been on their bandwagon. I've been the complete opposite. I've been on the overrated train. And then they just keep finding ways to win and proving me wrong. And so I do have a little bit of vendetta against them. But it's personal, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. Like I said, they probably deserve to be ranked. I'm going to bitch and moan about it. All right, let's preview this weekend's games. We'll start with Friday night games. Friday night games have felt a little strange. Thursday and Friday night games have been a little weird. So I'm going to preview this off of vibes alone. So if we look at both these teams, we got UCLA at Washington. Washington is a 4.5-point favorite. I, at one point this season, said that UCLA was one of the worst teams in college football. I have since retracted that statement because that was very wrong. They are not. They're not great, but they're not one of the worst. There are some way worse teams out there. Purdue, Kent State. I made a mistake. They enter this game in a 3-game win streak. Great for them. Ethan Garbers has really stepped it up and has started to look like a decent quarterback over this win streak. And Washington goes into this game losing 3 of their last 4. Now, I understand that Washington is at home, so that's probably why they started as a 3.5-point favorite, but it is moving in Washington's favor. But based on vibes, I think UCLA wins the vibe check, and they could win this game. I'm going to be honest, I like the underdogs in both these games. I really like UCLA. I never give Friday night bets out as part of my 5 faves. I try to avoid that. UCLA money line, UCLA to cover, either one. I like it a lot. Houston at Arizona. Arizona started as a 2.5-point favorite. They are now 1.5 point, which I agree with that line movement because Arizona is a dead team walking. They've given up. They're done. They don't even care anymore. They enter this game on a 5-game losing streak, and all of those have been blowouts. The West Virginia game looks closer than it actually was. If you watch that game, you never really thought that West Virginia was going to lose. It was like 31-13 in the 4th. Arizona got it within 2 scores. Whatever. It wasn't that close. Or maybe it was they actually might have gotten in within 1 score, I think, now that I'm looking back. Houston is a bad team. This was expected. We didn't think Houston was going to be good this year, and that was proven to be right. But unlike Arizona, they actually have fight. And they have won 3 of their last 4. And honestly, making a bowl is still on the table for them, which seems bizarre because nobody thought that of Houston. But 3 of their last 4, look at them go. On vibes alone, Houston has to be the favorite. I just don't understand how they're not. They're the only one of these 2 that have shown fight, and they do have a good defense. We already know how to shut down Arizona. Just take away McMillan, take away Fafita. Either one, you shut down the other. I like Houston in this one. Money line to cover, it doesn't matter. I like them a lot. All right, let's get into the noon games. Not a lot on the noon slate, quite honestly. And and not, I mean, I'm obviously going to watch because I just love college football, but, no games that you could probably need to tune into. You could probably skip this and not miss anything. We got Ohio State at Northwestern, 28.5-point favorites, and honestly, I think that number might be too low. Northwestern is a better team than Purdue. Now, barely, because when they did play each other, they beat them 26-20 in overtime. So they're not that much better than Purdue. And we just watched Purdue get beat 45-0. Now, that was at Ohio State. This is going to be at Northwestern. So I guess you got to throw a point or two towards Northwestern. But again, this is just another game Ohio State could win with their backups. I think the backups are going to be out by the third or fourth quarter for the second game in a row, and I think Ohio State's going to be well rested when they take on Indiana because Purdue and Northwestern are going to put up, well, we saw Purdue put up no fight, but Northwestern's going to put up barely any more of a fight. They might score a field goal, a touchdown, maybe both. That's about it. I think Ohio State could cover this game easily. We got Texas at Arkansas. Arkansas is a 13.5-point home dog. That started at 16.5, so there is movement towards Arkansas in this one. And honestly, it could happen. It really could. I mean, Texas hasn't beaten anybody this year. Vanderbilt is their best win, I guess. Michigan, you could argue, would be their second best. They had a chance to beat Georgia. They got absolutely destroyed at home. So, I mean, there's a chance. Arkansas has a chance. And we saw it happen with Tennessee. We thought Tennessee was going to come in there and just run right all over Arkansas because Arkansas's defense isn't great. And Arkansas won. So there is a chance. We've already seen Texas against the bottom dweller defenses in the SEC. And they've absolutely dominated them. Just threw the ball up and down, scored nonstop, just couldn't do anything. Look at Mississippi State, look at Florida. It just hasn't been great for them. And I think that might continue with Arkansas. There is a chance. I understand that. Taylon Green can pull up some magic, but how healthy is he? Didn't he sprain his knee, I believe? Now they had a bye week, but how healthy is he? So, I mean, he could pull out some magic, make this game a little close. It's possible. I just don't think Texas loses. All right, Clemson at Pitt. Pitt is a 10.5-point home dog. And they've kind of struggled offensively the last 4 games. Now, the Syracuse game is kind of an outlier because the defense did score more than the offense, and there were so many turnovers. The offense didn't really have to do much and wasn't on the field that often, so it's kind of hard to judge that game. But the other 3 definitely struggled. And if we look at Clemson, they've run right through their schedule. Take away that Georgia game that was obviously a really tough team. They lose that game, run right through their schedule, and then the first somewhat decent team that they face is Louisville, and they just absolutely shit the bed. And then they come out last week against Virginia Tech, and they're down 7-0 at halftime. The defense is doing their job. The offense is just doing diddly squat, and finally turned it on in the second half. Scored 3 touchdowns, field goal, won 24-14. That touchdown by Virginia Tech was in garbage time. Clemson woke up. After they lost to Louisville, they woke up a little bit. It took them a half, but they finally woke up. I do think that Clemson continues to roll. I think Pitt, the magic has run out for them. Since they've gotten into ACC play, their offensive production has just kind of dropped. Eli Holstein, if we actually look at his last 4 games, he only broke 150 passing yards once, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. And he's now questionable to even play this weekend. I don't think Pitt wins this game, and I don't think they keep it close. The magic has run out for them, and they dropped their 3rd straight. Utah at Colorado. Colorado is a 11.5-point favorite at home. Utah has some of the worst injury luck at the quarterback position. It is just absolutely unreal. Cam Rising, Sam Heward, and now Brandon Rose have all gone down with season-ending injuries, and they are now down to 2 quarterbacks. Freshman Isaac Wilson and super senior Luke Batari. And there are no other quarterbacks after that. This is it. It's kind of funny. Utah's offense has just been trash. We all know this. They've only scored 20 or more points once since September 21st. That was last week. They finally broke that streak. But this defense, as bad as that offense is, they are this year's Iowa because their defense is that good. They are a top 20 pass defense. They have a top 20 pass defense, and they are second in the Big 12. And Colorado has not faced a good pass defense this season. The best they faced is Nebraska, which they're not bad, they're not great. They haven't really faced a good pass defense. So this may prove to be a bigger challenge than people realize. Utah very well could cover this game solely based on their defense being that good and giving Colorado fits. Colorado will still probably win this game. It's just going to be closer than they would like. Let's just put it that way. Afternoon games, a real stinker here. Penn State at Purdue. Purdue is a 28.5-point underdog at home. And honestly, I think this game is going to be the exact same as the Ohio State game from last week. Easy win for Penn State. Starters are done by the third, fourth quarter. The real question is, how many points can Purdue score? I think Penn State covers 28.5 easily. I don't think Purdue can score much at all. Virginia at Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a 22.5-point favorite at home. This Notre Dame team drives me nuts. They win their first game against Texas A&M, lose the second one against Northern Illinois, and then they've rattled off 7 straight wins since then. You can't lose to Northern Illinois at home. I'm just going to say that right now. But here are the 7 teams that they've beat. Purdue, Miami of Ohio, Stanford, Georgia Tech without Haynes King, Navy, Florida State, and then their best win, I guess, is Louisville, which I don't think is that great of a win. But whatever. If Notre Dame wins out, they're going to make the playoffs over a 2-loss team that probably deserves it more than them. And I can't let that happen. So one of their final 3 teams needs to step up and win a game against Notre Dame and just absolutely dismantle their chances of making the playoffs, because I can't have that. I can't have them getting into the playoffs above a team that deserves it more. Their final 3 games are Virginia this week, Army, which I don't see the upset happening there, and USC. USC is a good chance for an upset. Virginia, I guess, is an okay chance. One of these teams has to beat Notre Dame. And let's be honest, none of these games are particularly tough for Notre Dame, so they have to mess up to epic proportions like they did against Northern Illinois. So I guess it is possible because they've done it once. Why can't they do it twice? I'm just so scared that Notre Dame is going to finish the regular season with just 1 loss and knock a deserving team out of the playoffs. Because they're going to get destroyed, let's be honest. They're going to get destroyed by whoever they play. And we're going to be like, why did we let Notre Dame in the playoffs yet again? Because it happens every time, and we always regret it. But lately, they always had Brian Kelly, so he was always shooting themselves in the foot to knock them out of the playoffs, and it was great. Now he's gone. Notre Dame might actually make them, and it's going to be a blowout yet again. Do I think Virginia pulls off the upset? No. Is it possible? Sure, I guess. Anything's possible this year. I just don't see it happening. LSU at Florida. Florida is a 4.5-point home dog. LSU is one of the best passing attacks in the country, and Florida has gotten absolutely lit up by some of the best passing attacks. Miami threw for 385 yards and 3 touchdowns. Georgia threw for 309 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, granted, there was also 3 interceptions in that, but whatever. And then Texas threw for 352 yards and 5 touchdowns. LSU's offense is going to absolutely feast on Florida. If Florida wants to win this game, DJ Lagway has to play, and he has to be 100% healthy, and I don't think either one of those things happens. Now, I take that back. He may play because I guess he's been practicing this week. I don't think he's 100% healthy. I don't. I think a hamstring injury is so finicky. 2 weeks off of that, I think that's what it would be now. makes me nervous. So he is their best chance because we've seen LSU struggle with mobile quarterbacks. I just don't know how healthy he will actually be. If he does play, Billy Napier said he's trending in the right direction to play. We shall see. I just don't think Florida wins this one. Nebraska at USC. USC is an 8.5-point favorite at home. Some big changes at Nebraska, like we talked about earlier. Marcus Satterfield has been demoted. Dana Holgerson's hired, taking over play calling duties, which is exciting. I don't know how much we will see just in this first game. That is all Dana Holgerson or what, but because I don't know how much of his offense they're going to be influencing into a game so quickly, but we'll see. Dylan Raiola has been banged up, so he is questionable for this game, so that's a little disappointing. I would like to see him and Holgerson working together. I think if he sticks around next year, it could be fun to watch. USC has benched Miller Moss, which was surprising to me because I don't think he's the issue with this USC team, but what do I know? Sounds like he has entered the transfer portal, and now Jaden Mayava has taken over as quarterback, the transfer from UNLV. Like I said, I don't think Moss was the issue. USC has the second best passing attack in the Big Ten. I don't think he was the problem. I think there's so many other issues with this USC team. I think they thought they could walk into the Big Ten and just dominate with their style, and that's just not how it works. I don't think it's Miller Moss. Nebraska has faced 2 top 5 passing attacks in the Big Ten and is allowing over 10 yards per attempt. They have gotten absolutely torched back-to-back weeks, too. Now, yes, I know Ohio State barely beat Nebraska, but Will Howard was like 13 of 16 for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns or something like that, which is efficient as hell. And Indiana threw all over Nebraska. So I think USC is going to have a good game throwing the ball here against Nebraska. In the long run, I think Nebraska's headed in the right direction. Dana Holgerson's a great hire. You have a young quarterback that's going to be around for 2 more years. Things will work out in the long run, I think. But unless they can shut down USC's passing game, I don't think they're going to win this one. Baylor at West Virginia. West Virginia is a 2.5-point home dog. West Virginia got lucky last week against Cincinnati. 3 turnovers that led to 17 points, and they won by 7. And two of those 3 turnovers were returned for touchdowns, so it was immediate 7 points. It's just a little lucky. It's a game that Cincinnati lost more than West Virginia won, and that's more or less why I honestly think Baylor could win this game and go bowling. They are 5-4. They just need to win 1 more to go bowling and potentially save Dave Aranda's job. Let's be honest. This is crazy. I didn't think it was going to happen, but look at him. He's slowly turning it around. Whoever is able to establish a passing game in this game is going to win. Both teams are very good at running the ball, but they're also good at stopping it. West Virginia has struggled to throw the ball, and Baylor has been significantly better than them. So I do give the edge to Baylor just for that reason alone, because, like I said, to win this game, you have to establish a passing attack, and Baylor's passing attack is better. I think Baylor wins this one, gets bowl eligible, potentially saves Aranda's job. Mizzou at South Carolina. South Carolina is a 12.5-point favorite at home, and I swear, if they do not win this game, I will forever be a South Carolina hater. Elijah Drinkowitz and Mizzou cannot keep getting away with this. The most overrated team in the top 25 by a long shot. A horseshoe shoved so far up their ass for the last 2 seasons that nobody can get it out. It's just driving me insane, and I need them to lose for my own sanity. I already said how Drinkowitz went on national television and said how they still have a shot at the playoffs. No, you don't. No, you don't. Shut the fuck up. No, you don't. Now, we've seen it with Mizzou. When they do play a good defense, they struggle, even when Brady Cook is the quarterback, which I'm going to assume he plays this weekend. Doesn't matter. They're going to struggle against the South Carolina defense just like they have all season. Now, South Carolina's offense, they did struggle earlier in the year with consistency, but that had a lot to do with injuries. A lot. Now, this offense relies heavily on the run. They are the 5th best rushing attack in the SEC. And Mizzou has already faced 2 of the teams in front of them. Bama and Texas A&M. And in those two games, Mizzou got outscored 75-10, allowed 507 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns, and nearly 7 yards per carry. In case you don't know, that's terrible. And I think it's going to be much the same in this one. They're going up against a good team, or good defense, who can run the ball. Mizzou does not have a shot in this one, even if Cook plays. But if he doesn't play, then they really have no shot. Arizona State at Kansas State. Kansas State is an 8.5-point favorite at home, which feels slightly disrespectful towards Arizona State. Now, Cam Scadaboo is still questionable to play, and they did miss him last week, but and it obviously would be better if he did play, but still feels a little disrespectful because Arizona State's a good team, and honestly, they could pull off the upset. Now, Kansas State does have a good run defense, so that is going to be an issue, so if you do want to beat Kansas State, you have to be able to throw the ball, because Kansas State's pass defense is not great. Sam Leavitt, he actually has been very efficient throwing the ball the last 4 games, so that does work in Arizona State's favor. He's completing over 60% of his passes for 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions over that last 4 games. That's great. If he can continue to do that, they have a shot at winning this game. Defensively, they need to shut down Kansas State's run defense and not allow Avery Johnson to beat you with his arm. He has beaten some teams with his arm. He's also lost games with his arm. So, which Avery Johnson can you force in this game? If you can, and Arizona State is good at shutting down the run game. So if they can shut down the run, which is Kansas State's strength on offense, it's what they like to do first, then they're going to have to beat you with their arm. Now, like I said, Avery Johnson's, he's done both. He's won games with his arm. He's also lost games with his arm. If this is a game that he's not feeling it and you can get some pressure on him, not allow him to beat you with his legs, Arizona has a real shot at putting up an upset here, at least covering. I like Arizona State in this one. Oregon at Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a 14.5-point underdog at home, and this is going to hurt me to say, but I do root for chaos, and chaos would be for Oregon to lose one of their last games. And their best shot at losing a game would be to Wisconsin. I don't like to root for Wisconsin to win, but I do root for chaos, and it would be funny if they won this game. Now, I don't think it's going to happen. Wisconsin, when Wisconsin has had to play a good quarterback, they've lost. The one outlier when we look at their losses is Iowa, but we've also seen Wisconsin struggle when they have to play good defenses too. And the one outlier, that Iowa is no longer an outlier there. Iowa does have a good defense. Oregon has a good defense. Dylan Gabriel's a good quarterback. That is a recipe for Wisconsin to lose this game. The two things they do have going for them, home field advantage, and they're coming off a bye week. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I think Oregon rolls to a pretty easy victory. Tennessee at Georgia. Georgia is a 10.5-point favorite at home, and this is the biggest game of the day. If Georgia loses, they are out of the playoffs. If Tennessee loses, they're not out, but it becomes much more difficult for them to make the playoffs. Now, obviously, the biggest question on everybody's mind is Nico going to play this weekend? And that depends on who you ask. If you ask Josh Heupel, he'll say Nico's practice, check the injury report. I expect him to play. If you ask local media, they all seem very confident that he'll play. If you ask Chris Vallica, the Bear, he will say that Nico is not playing. Now, obviously, if you're a Tennessee fan, you would much rather have Nico play. I get that. Why wouldn't you? But I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world if Nico doesn't play. Now, if I had to make an assumption, I also think that Nico plays. I don't think that there's any way he doesn't. I think from everything I've seen, heard, read, whatever, he's on his way to starting. But if he doesn't, I don't think it's the end of the world. The strength of this offense is the run game, has always been the run game, and that's what you're going to have to rely on against Georgia anyways. And you have arguably the best running back in the country, and if you can establish the run, you have a shot in this game, even if Nico doesn't play. Now, no part of this game is going to be easy for either side. I fully expect this to be kind of a lower scoring game. I think even if Nico plays, I think if Tennessee can get to 20 points, this game is won. If they can get to 22, 23, 24, this game is definitely won. Or at least their chances of winning go up significantly. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to guarantee they win. Georgia's defense, they're not as scary as years past, but they're still nothing to overlook. They're still a very good defense. Now, Tennessee's defense, just as good, if not better than Georgia, so it is going to be which defense can hold up. We've seen Carson Beck struggle when he's under pressure, and Tennessee is going to be able to get some pressure on Georgia, on Carson Beck, so we'll see how he handles the pressure. And when he's also under pressure, he throws a lot of interceptions. If Tennessee's defense can force some interceptions, this could go very well for Tennessee. Now, we have seen Tennessee's defense struggle the last couple games with, allowing some teams to run all over them that shouldn't be running on them. And Georgia is a bottom-tier team when it comes to running the ball, so I hope that trend doesn't continue with having bottom-tier teams just run all over you. Because then I'm going to sound real stupid and back in Tennessee in this one. But I really think Tennessee is good enough to win this game without Nico, and I think they're definitely good enough to cover 10.5 points. Unless Georgia can somehow figure out a run game, I just don't see that offense doing enough. Cincinnati at Iowa State. Iowa State is an 8.5-point favorite at home. And I don't want to say that Iowa State loses 3 straight, but I think this game could be somewhat close. Offensively, these teams are very evenly matched. Defensively is where we will see that slight difference. Iowa State is slightly better defensively. Now, they didn't seem like it last week against Kansas. We'll see if that trend continues, but I don't think it would. It seemed to be a little bit of an outlier. But I do think this game could be closer than the spread suggests. Cincinnati last week basically gave West Virginia that win by turning the ball over 3 times. 2 of those were returned for touchdowns. I don't think that's going to happen this week. So I think Cincinnati is good enough offensively to keep this one close. Defensively, they may not be good enough to stop Iowa State enough times, though. Late night game, we got Kansas at BYU. BYU is a 2.5-point favorite at home. Both teams are coming off a big win. Now, people are kind of poo-pooing on BYU's win because, or miracle, some people are calling it, miracle win in the Holy War against Utah because Utah's such a terrible team. How could you barely win against them? Here's why I don't look at it that way. One, it's a rivalry game. Those games are always going to be tougher than normal. Playing at Utah at night has always been tough. When Utah's good or bad, it's always tough. And Utah's defense, still a very good defense. Despite how bad that offense is, that defense is still very good. So I look at it as a good win for BYU, regardless of what other people may say. Now, Kansas, on the other hand, is a 3-6 team. That seems like a terrible team, but they have played every single team tough. I mentioned it last week how Jalen Daniels has stepped up, has turned around his game. First 5 games of this year, he was bad. The last 4, he's been phenomenal. Just a completely different quarterback. Like I said, they play every team tough. Every game is close. I'm not going to call my shot this week like I did last week with Kansas, but I will say this. BYU is not finishing the season undefeated. They will lose at least one of their final 3 games, whether that's this week against Kansas, next week against, I believe, Arizona State, which is not going to be an easy win either, and then against Houston. And no, I don't think Houston's necessarily an easy win. No matter what their record says, they're similar to Kansas where they might be a tough beat. Again, I'm not calling my shot, but Kansas money line, it does kind of stick out to me a little bit. All right, let's get into my 5 faves for the weekend. But before we do that, let's take a quick smoke break. All right, that smoke break was brought to you by weed, because what's a wake and bake without some weed? Let's get into my 5 favorite bets for this weekend. Again, like every weekend, struggle to narrow it down. I'm really struggling with this Tennessee-Georgia game because there's a few different bets that I like in it, and I'm only going to give one out. I'll give the other one as an honorable mention. I'll try to avoid doubling up in one game. But I'm going to go with Tennessee team total over 17.5 at -110. Now, Nico has not been confirmed to play as of, this recording. I think even without Nico, Tennessee can get to 20 points. I think over 17.5 is very doable for them, even against a Georgia defense that has proven to be good. All right, I got Penn State minus 28.5 at minus 110 against Purdue. Similar to Ohio State, I don't think Purdue's going to score much at all, if at all. And Penn State's going to be resting their starters by the fourth quarter because they'll be up 40-0. I got Ohio State team total over 36.5. Similar to Purdue. I mean, they're going to score easily. Now, yes, Northwestern is technically better than Purdue, not by much. I think Ohio State's going to roll to another easy victory, and it's going to be 45-0 again, 45-10, something like that. I got Arizona State plus 8.5 at minus 120. For everything I stated earlier, Arizona State I think is being a little underrated in this game against Kansas State. It's the Big 12. Crazy stuff happens all the time. I think Arizona State at least covers in this one. And I said I wasn't going to call my shot. And I'm not gonna. I'm keeping it for an honorable mention. I got Baylor minus 2.5 at minus 115. I think they win this game pretty easily. I think last week's win was a little bit of a fluke for West Virginia, and Baylor goes bowling. Now, for my honorable mentions, I do have I have Kansas money line plus 118. I got Tennessee plus 10.5 at minus 115. And I got Michigan State team total under 22.5 against minus 110. That's more of a vibe pick. That's why it's an honorable mention. It didn't make the top five, but or fave five. But Michigan State, I just have a feeling they're going to struggle. Aiden Childs is going to struggle against Illinois' defense, and they're going to not score that much. So that's a sneaky one. But that was more of a vibe pick. I can't put that in my fave five. And then finally, the Power 4 Moneyline Parlay. I got Clemson, LSU, Baylor, and Oregon plus 300. We need a win in this one. I had one crazy one plus 1,300 or whatever, but I backed off. I went for one more manageable so that we can at least get a win in the parlay division. All right, thank y'all for joining me. I'm a little excited for this weekend, even though there's not that many great games per se, but I'm always excited for college football. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys on Monday to review the weekend.